everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of MSP Business School. I'm Brian Doyle, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Rob Rogers and Tim McNeil. What's going on, boys?
Doing great today, Brian. Today's a fantastic day, sir.
See, I like the emotion, Rob, because too often you guys just shake your head at me, and I feel like I'm talking to the wall. So thank you for that.
No, it's 50 and sunny out. It's one of the warmest days of the year so far.
Crossed over into spring. It's almost baseball season. We got it all going on right now.
Yep.
But, nobody cares about what we think. I say that every time, especially when we've got great guests like we do today. And I want to welcome Len DiCostanzo to our call today from MSP Toolkit, but you guys probably know him from a variety of other areas prior to that, including Datto. And we want to welcome to the podcast today. How you doing today, Len?
Yeah, I'm doing as good as Rob and Tim, Brian.
There's more emotion right there, Len, than these guys usually give me. They're fantastic on camera.
Yeah.
As I shared with you guys before we got started, just got told my avulsion fracture with my right thumb is healed. So, this is kind of gravy for me today. Get to talk with you guys, chat with you guys on some great topics for MSPs.
Good stuff.
No, that's great. And we're excited to hear about, a little that we were discussing as we were getting ready for this call today that you're doing, because it sounds like, you're engaging on both sides of the MSP market, both with the vendor community and the partner community. And that, that brings a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom into what we can share today on this call. So, I think a great way to start out, though, is for the listeners that might not be familiar with you, maybe give a little bit about your background and short synopsis of, how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. I think, for all of us, we have our own journeys, and I've been in this business a long time, and I know we're recording this, and you could tell maybe by the hair and the look, I've been doing this a bit. In fact, I started a solution provider business back in like 1984, right? So I've pretty much seen it all. I've seen every evolution, every transformation, and literally not only been a part of it, but I feel helped drive some of that. So I was a solution provider for about 20 years, built a recurring revenue business late 90s, got fortunate enough to sell my business to a publicly traded company in around 2001, probably one of the first MSP roll-ups. And then from there, worked with that solution provider for a bit, but kind of felt something was missing for me. And as I moved to a kind of another phase of my career and began consulting, landed a gig with Kaseya, helped them build out their global MSP partner community, built a ton of content around making that transition. Was lucky enough to find a role at Autotask, and where I met one of your peers, one of your colleagues, Rob and Tim and Brian over there, Jake, Carol. Worked at Autotask for about 11 years, building out our global MSP community. Started out about 800 partners in 2008, grew to about 9,000, 10,000 partners, merged with Datto, was there for about a year. And then since then, I've been out consulting and helping vendors build out their partner programs, their channel go-to-market strategies, and really getting them aligned with how MSPs go to market. Prior to that, or actually pretty much the entire part of my career, I've been teaching best practices and not only learning them, but teaching them to that MSP community. So I touch base with the MSPs, I work with vendors, I get them aligned on go-to-market strategies, and that's what I've been doing over the last probably 3-4 years.
That's a critical piece out there. If you can't get that alignment to what the vendor's selling into the service catalogs of those MSPs, it can be difficult, especially when some of the margins coming off of some of those resale products are not very strong, right? So, how's the MSP going to make money? So it's good that there's somebody out there that can help provide a little bit of guidance on that, because it's definitely nuanced.
Oh yeah. I mean, probably one of the least, and certainly through my encounters at MSPs, not too many MSPs have a formal service catalog management strategy, right? They do, some of them maybe have a semi-formal approach to adding new vendors into their stack or into their service catalog. Many of them don't, and they'll kind of be looking at a shiny new object and, what vendor's giving me the best, I don't want to say drinks at the bar and running the best bar tab, but, there's a lot of shiny objects out there. And, one of the things I always implore an MSP is, structure or organize your services in a catalog, most folks using a quoting tool. That's where you start, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, maybe a quoting tool, and really like not only grab your distributor products or your vendor products and SaaS licensing and those products you tend to resell, but what are your services? How do you define your services and wrap them around these vendor products you're adding into your catalog? And that really is kind of like the launch point for how I work with MSPs, and whether through a vendor or directly. Get yourself organized and structured, and start your path to maturity by understanding what you sell, what your services are, and kind of go from there.
And I think that's a huge point that you just made. The amount of MSPs that we've talked to over the years, that they don't know how to wrap all those into one service. Although I think people are much more advanced now than they ever have been, there is such a need. I mean, I was talking to an MSP just yesterday, and they were actively asking me to help them set up their stack. And I was like, that ain't me, but I know a guy, and I know we're going to be talking to him tomorrow. So it's just funny to me that there's a bit of the wild, wild west when you start bringing in vendors, and they just, I don't want to say it's guesswork, but to a degree. So it's very much a need.
It's definitely can be guesswork. And I think, from my experience as a, solution provider before we were called MSPs, in fact, I called myself a consulting firm, right? That specializes in technology solutions to solve business needs and wants, right? It's all about your tagline, but we call them all MSPs. And, bottom line is, if an MSP is not building out their own service catalog and wrapping it around the products, whether they're SaaS products, hardware products, other software products, whatever it may be, if you're just reselling, then you're a reseller. But if you're defining your services and wrapping them around these vendor offerings, now you're differentiating those very same products that others might be selling, just selling, including the vendor, to an end client, and you're differentiating yourselves by wrapping your own services around it. And it's definitely a little bit of a science, but not really, because MSPs do this stuff all the time. It's just kind of giving them the framework to kind of make it happen, right? So for example, if you're going to add a new vendor in your stack, sometimes that vendor has no clue how you go to market. They don't understand the difficulty you have in crafting services around that product. So one of the kind of offshoots of what I've been doing is consulting with vendors and saying, look, when you recruit an MSP into your partner program, make sure you're not just selling your SaaS license to them and teaching them how to resell it, but what services can they wrap around it? How can they generate even more incremental revenue from adding your product into their stack? Tell them how long it takes to deploy it, right? Tell them how long they may spend at their service desk, resolving tickets or issues that come from it. Let them know the top 10 issues they might face as they roll out their product to their client base. So it's not only the MSP kind of grabbing hold of wrapping their service, but how do we get those vendors to make it easy for that MSP to add a new shiny object or a new offering in their catalog? It's by simplifying the process of bringing it into the stack, bringing it into the service catalog.
And I've seen that out in the market space today, that, as products get more and more specialized with it, and we're not just dealing with the big vendors like the HPs, the Dells, the Lenovo's of the world. The expectation from the MSP is that they really are forming a partnership, and it's not just a buy-sell relationship with their vendor partner. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you kind of educate the vendor to better support the partner and the needs of them. You've touched upon a couple of the prep steps here, but really what makes a winning partner relationship with the MSP, and what are you seeing as some of the best in breed tactics that are being utilized in the market today?
Yeah, well, definitely, could be a broad topic, right, Brian? It just really depends on the vendor, their offering, how they're going to market. Are they an outsourced partner? Bottom line is, every vendor has to be a more strategic partner for the MSP. And it all starts with having a a comprehensive, robust, whatever word you want to kind of use, partner program, right? You can't just go out there and say, sell my stuff. And one of the things one of the analogies I use anyway, at least when I talk to vendors and internal staff, is, think about, and of course, hopefully they understand college football and recruiting into a program, right? But I look at it as, how do you recruit someone to join your team? Well, you have to have great benefits. You have to, you recruit a football player. You're not going to say, hey, come play with us. You're going to say, got a great field, got a great stadium, got a great fan. We got tutors. We got, study halls. Whatever it may be, you must create a benefits package that says, when you sign with us, you're not just a reseller. You're really an extension of our sales team. And we're going to help you go to market by getting you technically enabled, sales enabled, marketing enabled. And we're going to provide these assets and these benefits to you and really jumpstart you into the market, perhaps even helping you roll out, your first couple of solutions into your client base and really getting you self-sufficient. So it's about building a program that you can recruit a partner into, that you have, everybody talks about white glove treatment, but you kind of have to have it. Most MSPs can get distracted quick, right? They got clients who have needs too. So, you really have to embed yourself in there and become more strategic. So that MSP wants you to work with them and help them grow their business around your offerings.
That's really powerful because we all know the huge amount of MSPs that go to IT Nation or, wherever they go, have all these great ideas and these new vendors that they're going to use, come back, don't implement. Actually, they get caught doing other things. The holidays come around and then January comes around and then they have this product and they don't even use it, right? And it just sits there and they don't know what to do and they don't even know where to go and they just fizzle out. And then you lose them 6 months later as the vendor, right? So it's a very powerful message that can really help a lot of people, both on the sales side and in the implementation side.
Yeah, and I think it also comes with, educating that vendor sales team, right? So as you help a vendor go to market with MSPs, it's not just about one or two folks in the organization. You really have to build a strategy, top down, bottom up, and kind of touch the organization so everybody's aware of the lifestyle of an MSP, the go to market, and how do you approach it. And at the end of the day, we call it selling right. It's like, hey, do you want to sell a partner 3,000 licenses that they may never sell because they only manage 1,000 users? Or do you want to sell them 100 licenses, get them in, show them the ropes, and then they kind of grow on their own organically around your product, deploying it and rolling it out in their client base? Of course, if your product is great, your offering is great, you go to market great, your client, your partner as a vendor, your partner says, hey, I'm rolling this out across my base. Hey, they come in, buy a bigger chunk. At least you've done a kind of a strategic sales motion to identify how they're rolling this stuff out or how they're going to roll it out, and then you help them do it. So you got to do your best as a vendor to simplify the process of getting that MSP to incorporate your offering in their stack and then roll it out to their base. One key thing for a vendor, if they can communicate with that MSP and become part of that stack, that MSP is not selling that vendor offering typically. They're selling themselves. They're selling their managed service bundles and offerings and including that vendor's offering in their stack. So it becomes, pretty powerful scaling engine for a vendor and also for that MSP.
Well, I also think one thing, and you touched on this, right? A lot of vendors, I feel like there's almost been a heightened amount of support for the MSP community over the last couple of years. And that's really the biggest way that these vendors tend to be separating themselves, is spending that extra face time actually going on sales calls sometimes, or being a part of it in some way, shape, or form, where I don't feel like that was commonplace even 4 or 5 years ago. I do, whether call it COVID, call it whatever, it does seem like there's been a larger push for that over the last couple of years. And I think you're seeing a lot of vendors grow bigger, faster, stronger than ever over the last few years because of it.
Oh yeah, I know. I think you're right. I mean, I certainly, as the solution provider I was, pre-MSP, I would bring a Cisco or an HP rep or somebody on a call, right? Products, hardware, complex, technical. I think now MSPs are primarily selling themselves and their offerings, and I don't want to say hiding what's in their stack, but there's no doubt bringing a vendor in to help you sell. Maybe there's some particular strength of a particular product. And yeah, vendors right now are very willing to kind of saddle up with an MSP, sit in on calls. And I just finished a call with a vendor client right now, kind of taught their channel sales team that very same thing. It's like, tell them we help you sell. We sell with you. We don't sell for you. We don't sell without you. We don't sell direct. We sell with you. Bring us in. We'll support your efforts. We know how you go to market. We know you're selling yourself, and we're just going to kind of fit in there and help you sell yourself, because we know as a vendor in your stack, we're going along with you on the sale.
So Len, you're coming into an MSP who, and they want to incorporate this vendor into their stack. How do you help them?
The vendor?
On the MSP side. On the MSP side.
Well, again, on the MSP side, again, it's really about taking whatever that vendor offering is. Let's just call it a SaaS license, or better yet, let's call it Office 365, right? M365, something everybody knows and loves. After actually the merger of Autotask and Datto, I did spend about 1.5 years with a company called Cordo out of New Zealand. Loved working there, by the way. Got to go back and forth about 6 times right before COVID. Sold the business right before COVID, which was the impetus of why I consult now. But you basically take off of M365. When I worked at Cordo, we built a product called Cloud Optimizer for Office 365. And what we kept hearing from partners is, we don't make any money on M365. Why do we want to use Cloud Optimizer for Office 365? Like, you need to monetize beyond the license. It's kind of a term I like to use. And it really goes with any SaaS offering, any cloud offering. You've got to learn how to monetize beyond the license. And how do you do that? Well, I think the pandemic, prior to it, 20 points, Microsoft gives a distributor, the partner gets 16 or 18 or wherever they get, then they would stop. No one taught them how to use email, because everybody knows how to use email. Well, pandemic comes. Now what do? They're showing them how to use Teams and collaboration and OneDrive and get on SharePoint. And you got folks now who have an M365 practice. I work with a distributor who does nothing but sell Dynamics. Well, MSPs, one of their top targets, bring them in and outsource the build. You don't want to build a Dynamics practice. Maybe you outsource it. So you outsource or you wrap your services around it, but figure out a way to monetize beyond a license. And that's kind of where I try to focus with my vendor clients, is teach that MSP, and I'll kind of step back a bit, but most vendors will go, oh yeah, you sell my product and you don't have to do anything. I think we've heard that 1 million times, and we know that's not true.
Right? And it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, right? So the MSP's got to support it. They got to field support calls. There's an issue behind the scenes even that the end user doesn't see. MSP's got to know how to solve it. So if they're going to put more time in there, if you think about some vendors like Microsoft, here's 20 points distributor, and hey partner, you get like 18 or 16. That's not enough money to take support calls. And how do I do a mail merge? How do I do this? How do I use Teams? You have to build robust service offerings around whatever license or whatever SaaS product you're selling, because it's what we used to do back in the day. You didn't sell an application without having to install it on a desktop or on a server and roll it out and configure it. Same thing with SaaS. Why wouldn't you charge for a project up front? How long does it take to deploy something? Once you deploy it, yes, you're making revenue on the license, but what about increasing your service desk fee to your client to cover any additional calls? Maybe it's a cyber product. You're going to get an incident you got to react to. Are you charging for that incident separate? Are you building it into your bundle cost? So we just kind of talk that through with the vendor and say, here's how it takes to what it takes to deploy. Here's what it takes to support. Here's what it takes to react to issues, and really help that MSP, that partner, kind of easily bring that new offering in their stack.
Instead of letting the MSP figure everything out. I used to love
Len, sell my stuff. I'm like, well, great. How do I use your stuff? What's the value of your stuff? And how much work is it going to take me to deploy it? Or I don't know. Why don't you just figure it out? You know? And then that becomes a nightmare for the MSP. And that's typically why they drop the ball after seeing an exciting product. They got a lot of work to do to actually build it in their stack, price it, figure out maybe, especially in today's world, kind of like the PSA at Autotask, now cybersecurity under like SASE, or consolidating your cybersecurity stack. I'm working with a vendor client now. They've basically taken 5 cybersecurity products or SaaS offerings, combined it under one roof. So now, if I'm an MSP, do I want to work with 5 products or one? So the point is, simplify their go-to-market, but at the same time, what's the value of your offering in their stack? What can they save by consolidating with your product? And that's really how we got started even at Autotask, right? Different point solutions or ConnectWise, whatever, love both, put them, CRM, project management, billing, ticketing, all under one app. So, we just try to help them again, along with how that MSP goes to market, wrap their services around it, really simplify the process.
And that, and that's the critical piece. You hear a lot about the $300 and, per seat charges and things like that. And the only way you can get there is by consolidating these products, getting them built into that and putting the services around it. And, let's face it, for, as long as you and I have been doing this, right? I've got the gray hair as well. It's always been about the service money more so than any of the product money, right? The product's just an enabler for you to be able to get to that service offering. So I saw, Rob, you put up the signal that we're coming towards the end of our time. Len, I wanted to make sure that we discussed, one of the opportunities for MSPs out there today. You were telling us a little bit about your MSP Accelerator program before we got into our call. And maybe you can share with our listeners, what that's all about and how they can get engaged with you if that's something that they're interested in.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess first thing I'd actually share is, if an MSP has, a vendor who doesn't really know how to help them and they like that vendor, I'd love to meet their vendor partner and help them become more strategic. So that kind of be one way. And then typically that vendor will engage me with their partners in webinars and, group formats. But as far as MSPs, I have what's called an MSP Accelerator. It's basically 5 workshops where I kind of help them get level set and help build their path to maturity, right? Get their kind of process started, where we talk through what they're offering right now, help them build out, structure their service catalog, how to price it, go through a pretty detailed pricing exercise, what kind of staffing they may need. If they, already have it, we take a look at it. And then one of the keys for me is every time I work with a vendor and get them aligned with an MSP, it's always been, get into your client base first. So, hey, MSPs, now that we've got your catalog, we got your price right, you're staffed right, how do we roll stuff out into your client base? And we kind of talk about your clients and kind of organize your clients a certain way. And then once we understand how to roll stuff out in our client base, we talk about how to win new logos, specifically with a vendor's offering or with your own, with a little hook in the mouth. So we call that MSP Accelerator. You can reach out to me, Len at msptoolkit.com. You can hit my website, msptoolkit.com, book an appointment. We can chat, but, happy to work with MSPs, vendors alike, and really help everyone kind of be aligned and go to market a little quicker and a little more profitably.
Terrific.
Very good. Very good.
So, Rob, Tim, I don't know if you guys have any closing comments.
No, I guess the only thing I would say is we've known Len a long time, going back to Autotask days, where he may have yelled at Rob and I, but that's a separate conversation for another time. And I just I feel like he's very well known in the industry, and I know he does some really good work. So if anybody is looking to set up their stack, he is a man to go to. There's no doubt.
I appreciate it.
No. I'm surprised we didn't talk college football at all, Lynn. You just slid that thing right in there. Didn't even say anything. I'm shocked.
Yeah, well, didn't we talk about the partner program? You want to recruit into your program? We talked about it.
Yeah. Hey, well, Len, Brian, Tim, I really appreciate you guys being on the call today. For anybody that wants to get a hold of Len, we will be including his LinkedIn profile with the podcast, and this podcast will be up on YouTube. So please like, subscribe, reach out to us. And Brian, what are they going to do?
Ring that bell, man.
Gotta smash that bell.
Come on.
And we'll also have this thing up on MSP Business School where you always see it. So don't worry about that. Len, Brian, Tim, thanks a lot, fellas. I really appreciate it. Take care, fellas.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it.